The morning unfolded in silence, the kind Judge Elias Grayson valued more than most. He poured his coffee into a ceramic mug with a chipped handle. The kitchen counter was clean but not polished, books stacked neatly beside a legal pad, the day's newspaper folded with surgical precision. He stood barefoot, wearing navy slacks and a white undershirt, jazz humming low through a tabletop radio. Coltrane this morning. His hands moved with habit. Buttered toast, medication sorted, 2 vitamins, 1 antihypertensive. He tapped the bottle twice before capping it. Everything in its place. His house was modest. 2 stories, pale brick, front porch cracked just enough to annoy the neighbors but not enough to justify repair. The kind of place that didn't shout status. Didn't whisper either. It simply was. He sat at the kitchen table, flipping through the paper, red pen in hand, circling editorial errors. Not for fun. For sport. Then a knock. He stood, opened the door. Outside Mrs. Corinne Lawson, 83, a retired librarian with a cane and a voice like sandpaper, stood clutching a grocery bag with both hands. "Don't say a word, Elias," she said. "Just take it." He smiled. "If it's more ginger tea, you know I still have last week's. It's lemon balm. For your nerves. You're too polite. It'll kill you." He took the bag and followed her out to the curb. She pointed with her cane. "Your car's dusty." He looked at it, a sleek, black 2020 Lincoln Continental. Quiet, heavy, clean lines, silver trim. "I suppose I've been walking more," he said. She leaned closer. "You keep leaving it in the driveway like that. Someone's gonna think it doesn't belong to you." He raised an eyebrow. "I've got the deed and the skin tone to prove otherwise." She cackled, slapped his arm, then muttered, "Still too polite." They parted. Elias stood for a long moment before heading back in. The sun was rising, casting light across the driver's side door. He paused, then unlocked it, slid in, and adjusted the seat. He had a court appearance later, small claims mediation. Before that, he'd promised a former student coffee downtown. Young public defender, full of fire. He turned the key, the engine hummed, the jazz cut off as Bluetooth took over. Calendar reminder buzzed. As he backed out of the driveway, he noticed it. A white cruiser parked 2 houses down, facing the wrong direction. Didn't think much of it. He turned left toward the corner. That's when the lights lit up behind him, red and blue, fast, no siren, just flash. He eased to the curb, blinked once, then turned off the ignition. 2 white officers exited, one younger, late 20s, buzz cut, hand already near his holster, the other older, mustache, slow walk, veteran type. They approached on either side. Grayson rolled the window down. Quietly, hands visible. "You're stopping me," he said calmly. "Why?" The young one leaned in. "We got a call. Said this car was possibly stolen." Grayson looked ahead, said nothing. "License and registration," the older one said. "It's in the glove box. Move slow." Grayson did, pulled out the leather folder, handed it over. The younger cop glanced at the registration, then at Elias, then back. "This registered to an Elias Grayson." "That's me," he said. The cop's brow furrowed. "Got ID?" "No." "Why not? I don't carry it when I'm home." The older cop stepped closer. "Step out of the vehicle, sir." Grayson blinked. "Am I under arrest?" "You're being detained." "For what crime?" "Suspicious behavior. Failure to produce ID for a reported stolen vehicle." Grayson exhaled once. The neighbors were already watching, curtains moving. A dog barked somewhere. "I'm a state circuit judge," he said evenly. "You can verify me through dispatch." The younger one scoffed. "Right." The older cop opened the driver's door. "Sir, step out." Grayson didn't move. Then he did. Hands visible, calm. They turned him toward the car, patted him down. "Check the VIN," the older one muttered. The younger cop walked around front. Grayson stood quietly, back straight, chin up. A woman across the street was filming. He saw her, said nothing, just kept breathing. The VIN checked out, the registration matched. No warrants, no alerts, no reason. Except one. The older cop handed back the papers. "You're free to go." Grayson didn't move. The younger one avoided eye contact. "You can file a complaint," the older one said. "I won't," Grayson replied. He got back in the car, closed the door, drove the last 2 blocks in silence, pulled into the courthouse garage. Sat there for a long time, then finally whispered, "Too polite." The clip was 27 seconds long. The video started shaky, phone tilted sideways, the lens catching Elias with his hands braced against the Lincoln as the older officer frisked him. The audio was faint, but clear enough. "You're being detained." "For what crime?" Then silence. Just the mechanical sound of gloved hands slapping fabric. It hit Twitter first. A teenager from across the street posted it with the caption, "My neighbor just got stopped in front of his own house. They say he stole his own car. He's a damn judge." Within 4 hours it had 64,000 retweets. By morning it was on BuzzFeed, CNN's Sidebar, and 2 local talk radio stations. By afternoon, the mayor's office released a careful, clenched statement about ongoing review and full confidence in our law enforcement officers. The precinct released the body cam footage, heavily redacted. Grayson watched none of it. He sat in chambers, door closed, watching the blinds ripple with the occasional knock of wind. He ignored his buzzing phone, even after the 7th missed call from his clerk, the 2nd voicemail from Chicago Tribune editorial, and a personal text from the district chief that said, "You okay? I'm here if you need media cover." He didn't want media cover. He wanted a courtroom. Order. A place where facts didn't depend on who's holding the camera. But now he was the man in the video. Later that evening, Elias stepped into the community library 2 blocks off 39th. The room was already filled, mostly black, some Latino. A few white folks, tense around the edges. The youth panel moderator, a tall woman in a green sweater, motioned for silence. Everyone, "We're honored to be joined by Judge Elias Grayson." Applause. Muted, but real. He hated it. He approached the mic slowly, nodding to the crowd, then placing both palms on either side of the lectern. He didn't clear his throat, didn't smile, just leaned slightly forward. "I was stopped," he said plainly, "for being a black man in a nice car. That's not a scandal, that's a Tuesday." Scattered hums of agreement. "I'm not here to vent. I'm not filing suit. I'm not a victim. I've got a bench and a badge. But I'm here because the system doesn't care who you are, just what you look like." He paused, let the silence grow. "I've seen both sides of the glass. I've sentenced guilty men. I've protected innocent ones. But I've also watched the scales tilt before the evidence even lands." He looked at the room. "This isn't about me." He stepped back and walked off the stage. No Q&A, no press, just the truth. Outside, under the streetlight, a woman was waiting. Short, strong posture, mid-40s, sharp eyes behind tortoiseshell glasses. "Judge Grayson," she said, holding out a hand. "Maria Santos, City Planning Division." He shook her hand, slowly. "You're far from downtown. I've been following your case. It's not a case. Yet." He narrowed his eyes. She pulled a folded manila folder from her messenger bag. "I think you should see something." He took it, unfolded it. Inside, a map of recent zoning permits, overlaid with red dots, each one marking a traffic stop in the past 6 months. The pattern was obvious. A perfect red circle around every parcel owned by a private developer named Vernon Wesley. "It's not profiling," she said softly. "It's targeted cleansing. They're using traffic stops to pressure black homeowners into moving, easier to redevelop if the neighbors feel hunted." Elias looked at the map again. Wesley's got connections? Zoning board, police union, probably a few more. He closed the folder, his voice low, measured. "How deep does it go?" She looked at him without blinking. "Depends how far down you're willing to dig." They met again 2 days later in Maria's office, a narrow, windowless room in the basement of the Department of Planning. The ceiling buzzed with bad fluorescence, and the air conditioner coughed like it was dying in stages. Elias stood at the whiteboard, staring at the color-coded map. He was dressed casual, slacks and open collar, but his posture was still that of a man sitting on a bench, deliberate, upright, unreadable. Maria paced. She talked fast when she was nervous, but never aimlessly. "Here's what we know. Over the past 12 months, 138 parcels were tagged for redevelopment under fast-tracked distressed district exemptions. That's already odd. It usually takes years for those designations." She tapped a green circle with her marker. "These parcels? All acquired by entities owned by the same holding company, Vernon Wesley's Westage Capital." She moved down a list of dates, and the majority of them were purchased within 6 months of sustained aggressive traffic stops within a 3-block radius. Harassment-level frequency. In several cases, homeowners sold early, citing quality-of-life concerns. Elias raised a hand, slowly. "What about the citation records? I cross-referenced CPD ticketing data with FOIA requests. Watch this." She opened her laptop and projected a spreadsheet. Name after name, each tied to multiple low-level citations, broken taillights, tinted windows, rolling stops, expired emissions. 53 of these individuals had no prior offenses. 28% were senior citizens. One guy, Mr. Reggie Torin, got 6 tickets in 9 days, 3 of them for the same offense. Elias tilted his head. They're not policing. They're harassing. Maria nodded. They're pressuring. Create fear, create inconvenience. People move. Especially renters. Especially single mothers, retirees, people without lawyers. He stared at the board, then spoke softly. This isn't just profiling. This is engineering. Maria leaned on the desk. There's more. She handed him a printed email. A forward. Subject line, RECID Red Zone Clearance from Planning Liaison B. Lowry 2. Deputy Commissioner's Office. Who's B. Lowry? He asked. Brandon Lowry, mid-level planner. But what matters is who CC'd him. She pointed. Captain D. Kellerman, CPD, Special Ops Unit. Elias's brow furrowed. She added, Kellerman's unit oversees tactical enforcement for high crime zones. But this document links him directly to land designation orders. That's completely outside his jurisdiction. He set the paper down. Have you brought this to your department? Maria shook her head. You think I'd still be employed if I had? A beat. Then I didn't come to you for your name, Judge. I came because you already know how this works. I came because I need someone who knows where a courtroom ends and where the real fight starts. He didn't answer right away. His eyes scanned the board again. Then he said, We'll need 3 things. Maria raised an eyebrow. Proof of coordination, financial motivation, and a witness. I've got a contact, she replied. Former city enforcement scheduler. He flagged this 6 months ago. They reassigned him to inventory. He might still talk, if he isn't scared off. Good, Elias said, reaching for his coat. Let's find him. She zipped up her bag. You believe me now? He didn't look at her. He looked at the map. Red pins, blue pins, green. I believe they made a mistake when they put their hands on the wrong man. His name was Tobias Finch. Maria had only met him twice. Once in a zoning hearing, once over lunch, when he'd nervously hinted that something was off with the way redistricting was being prioritized. She'd followed up twice, then he'd stopped responding. They began at CityWorks HQ, a beige concrete box with tinted glass and the smell of floor wax and anxiety. On the 4th floor, where Finch's office used to be, they found only a sign that read, Facilities, Temporary Storage taped over the nameplate. Maria stared at it. Elias didn't blink. Inside, 2 rows of empty cubicles. 1 computer remained, screen unplugged. No files, no binders, nothing. Maria looked toward a maintenance tech polishing the floor by the hallway. Excuse me, she said. What happened to the zoning scheduler who worked here? Finch? The man shrugged. Transferred, I think. Where? Didn't say. One day he was here. Next day, poof. Elias walked to the desk, pulled out the chair, sat. Mind if I borrow this for a moment? The tech blinked. Be my guest. Elias reached under the desk. No dust marks. Nothing had sat on this desktop for weeks, maybe longer. Then he looked at the outlet. 1 cord was sheared, not unplugged, cut. He stood slowly. Someone cleaned this office by hand. Maria swallowed. You think he's in hiding? I think someone made him disappear. Back in the garage, Maria sat behind the wheel of her faded blue Camry. Elias rode passenger, hands resting on a file folder filled with nothing. Maria muttered, We're not journalists, Elias. If we lose our lead, he interrupted quietly. What did he tell you that first lunch? She exhaled. He said traffic assignments were being ghost flagged, that high alert patrols were being scheduled in areas without crime reports. Like the system was being pre-programmed, and officers were being directed without paper trails. Elias nodded slowly. She continued. He tried to question it, got reassigned to inventory and storage. That was 3 months ago. Elias opened his phone, pulled up a number, dialed. Who are you calling? She asked. He held a finger up. Sergeant Tyrell Bishop, he said after a moment. Narcotics, not a friend, but not dirty. The phone rang, then picked up. A man's voice, groggy, yeah? Bishop, it's Judge Grayson. A pause, then sharper. You all right, sir? I'm fine. I need to ask about a city employee. Tobias Finch. Used to work scheduling. You heard anything? Another pause. Long. Then, he's gone. Gone? Word is he got nervous. Tried to whistleblow, but the wrong person intercepted his draft. Next morning, apartment was stripped, badge deactivated, his name's off the employee rolls. Where is he? I don't know, but if he's smart, he's not in the city. Click. Elias lowered the phone. Maria's hands tightened on the wheel. What now? He looked at her. Voice low. "We assume we're being watched." That night, Elias returned home to find his mailbox open. The lid hung awkwardly, as if bent by force. Inside, no mail. Just one photograph. A printed image, grainy surveillance style, showing him and Maria at CityWorks HQ that morning. Mid-walk, side by side. A red circle was drawn around his face in pen. No note, no return address. Just a picture. Just a warning. Maria's front door was open, not kicked in, pried, quietly, deliberately. Elias stood just behind her in the hall, watching the flickering light bulb overhead like it might burst from the tension. Maria stepped inside slowly, phone flashlight raised. No alarm, no signs of violence, but the air felt emptied. The small living room was untouched, so was the kitchen. Then she reached her office, gone, everything. Laptop, filing boxes, external hard drives. Even the whiteboard had been wiped clean, literally. A faint smudge of red marker was the only evidence that anything had ever been written. Maria didn't scream. She didn't panic. She just stood very still. Elias moved in behind her. His voice was level but hard. "Did you back any of it up?" "Some," she said. "On my cloud. But not the emails, not Finch's contact info. That was in the physical files." Elias scanned the room. No forced mess. No ransacking. Just surgical removal. This wasn't a robbery. It was a silencing. He crossed to the kitchen and opened the fridge. Nothing missing. Then to the window. The screen was intact. The front door hadn't been locked when they arrived. "Someone picked it," he said. Maria sat down on the couch slowly, as if realizing that her living space had never truly been hers. Then she muttered, "They erased him. Now they're trying to erase us." Elias didn't respond. He just looked out the window, then checked his watch. By morning he received the second threat. Not a photo this time. A manila envelope, hand-delivered to his courthouse chambers. Inside, a court rendering, a sketch of his bench from the back angle. Someone had drawn a red X across his silhouette. No note, no return address, just a signal. He stood at the window of his office, watching the street below. For a long time he said nothing. Then he reached into his drawer and removed a USB stick. He plugged it into his secure terminal and opened the folder titled Unfiled, Westage. Inside were duplicates of Maria's GIS overlays, financial logs, FOIA responses, and scanned excerpts from planning memos. He hit Select All and attached them to an email. Subject for immediate release, evidence of targeted redevelopment and coordinated police harassment recipients, Tribune Metro Desk, NPR Midwest Investigations, State Attorney's Press Office, 3 private attorneys he trusted. He hesitated only once, then typed, "This isn't about revenge, it's about the truth. E. Grayson." He clicked send, then removed the USB, smashed it under his shoe. That evening, the Tribune published the story. It wasn't front page yet, just above the fold, but the headline hit like a hammer. "Black judge targeted in police stop tied to redevelopment scheme by morning." It was trending. Hashtag Grayson stopped, hashtag drive while black cable news picked it up. Talk shows. Even the White House press secretary was asked about it during a routine briefing. No comment at this time. "We are monitoring the situation." Elias watched it from his living room. Tie loosened, cup of untouched tea on the table. He hadn't slept. But his hands weren't shaking. Not anymore. That night, someone spray-painted the sidewalk outside his house. Big, angry letters, "You chose the wrong side." Maria saw the photo online before he did. When she called him in a panic, he just said, "No, I chose exactly the right one." It started with a burner email. Subject, "We need to talk. I can't be a part of this anymore." Maria opened it first, sitting across from Elias in a downtown cafe. Rain tapped the windows. Her laptop glowed against the tabletop like it was lit from beneath. The sender used a proxy address, encrypted, but the language was too specific to be fake. They knew names, codes, internal memo titles that only someone deep inside Westage Capital would know. Attached was a single file, a PDF scan of a strategic development map titled Targeted Zones for Optimized Recovery. Red blocks shaded Southside neighborhoods. Next to each, projected property value increase post-community adjustment. Maria leaned back, eyes wide. Elias read the subtitle aloud. Projected clearance timetable, CPD coordination pending. He whispered it again. Then he said, "This is our Rosetta Stone." They arranged a meeting. Discreet. Elias and Maria waited in the back booth of a closed Polish diner, 2 blocks from a commuter rail yard. At 9:13 p.m., the door creaked open, and a young man in a hooded coat stepped inside. Early 30s, pale, nervous. He didn't sit down right away. When he finally did, he slid a flash drive across the table and whispered, "My name is Cole. I was part of the analytics team, Wesley's pet department." Elias asked, "You created those maps?" "Some of them, but the pressure came from higher. We were told to forecast where public resistance was lowest, where policing presence was cooperative. Then they'd match those maps with city renewal programs." Maria said, "That's racketeering." "Conspiracy." Cole nodded. "We knew it was dirty, but we didn't know how dirty until the donations started." Elias narrowed his eyes. "What donations?" Cole slid another folder out of his coat. Hard copies, checks signed, dated, 6-figure campaign contributions to city council members, zoning officials, and even a state circuit judge. Not Elias, someone else. Wesley used Friends of the Neighborhood as a laundering front, poured money through fake charities. In exchange, he got land approvals, enforcement patterns, and building permits months before anyone else. Maria whispered, "This is federal." Elias didn't blink. "This ends in open court," he said. "I'll take it to the state attorney's office myself." Cole leaned forward. "If I do this, I need protection." "You'll get it," Elias said. "You've already done more than most men in your position would." Cole looked him in the eye. "I'm doing it because I saw the video. You got stopped for your skin. I kept thinking, what if it was me on the other side of that badge? What if I didn't say anything?" Elias nodded once. Then he stood, and the war began in public. By the next morning, 3 major news outlets had leaked documents from the flash drive. The New York Times called it coordinated economic warfare. MSNBC ran a segment titled, "When City Planning Becomes Predatory." CPD issued a statement, flat, defensive, and full of legal hedgewords. The mayor called for external review and pauses on pending redevelopments, but the dam had already broken. People were protesting again, not just in the South Side but across the city, not screaming, marching, filing lawsuits, naming names. Maria sat at her desk watching the news feed spin. Her eyes were tired, but her posture was unbreakable. Elias stepped into his chambers that afternoon to find a single message blinking on his voicemail. "We want you to testify. Publicly, Capitol hearing, national broadcast." He picked up the phone and said, "Tell them I'll be there." The hearing chamber was cold. Marble floors, arched ceilings, cameras mounted like insects along the beams. Judge Elias Grayson adjusted his tie in the reflection of a brass nameplate. He wore a deep charcoal suit, black tie, no robe, no bench between him and the world today, just a table, just a microphone. Maria sat in the gallery, no notebook, just her presence. Her eyes locked on him like steel. The room quieted as the Oversight Subcommittee chair, a sharp-tongued senator from Michigan, tapped the gavel. "Judge Grayson, thank you for appearing. For the record, state your full name and title." He leaned forward. "Elias Grayson, Circuit Judge, 11th Judicial District, State of Illinois. You've submitted documents indicating a coordinated system of harassment targeting minority residents in South Chicago. Is that correct?" "Yes." "You're saying this wasn't just profiling?" "No," Elias said. "I'm saying it was policy." A murmur rippled through the room. One congressman scoffed, flipping through the files. "With all due respect, Judge, that's a bold claim." Elias didn't blink. "It's a fact." He tapped the binder in front of him. 3 departments coordinated: planning, policing, and development. Zoning zones were created not based on crime, but on real estate potential. Enforcement increased in those areas, forcing displacement through fear. Homeowners sold, developers bought, politicians were paid. Another senator leaned in. "Paid?" Elias nodded once. "We have donation logs, redacted memos, and internal communications from Westage Capital. Money was laundered through front organizations. In return, permits were pre-approved and patrol zones were adjusted accordingly." The chairman asked, "Why didn't you report this earlier?" Elias looked directly at the senator. "Because I was trying to believe the system could fix itself." He paused. "And because I had to be stopped at gunpoint in front of my own house for anyone to care." The room fell into dead silence. Cameras zoomed in. Maria leaned forward, heart hammering. Elias continued, voice low but resonant. "You asked me to explain how this happened. It happened because the system isn't broken. It's precise, efficient, designed by people who benefit when the silence holds. But once the silence breaks," he looked into the cameras, "it's over." The chairwoman nodded slowly. "Judge Grayson, Thank you. He stood, left the mic live, left the binder open, walked out of the chamber, not like a man finished speaking, but like a man ready for the next round. Outside the Capitol, protesters stood behind barricades, not shouting, listening. A little girl on her father's shoulders held up a cardboard sign in pink marker, "My dad's car isn't a threat." Elias didn't smile, but he met her eyes, and nodded. It began not with sirens but subpoenas. By Monday morning, the federal courthouse had issued 12 sealed indictments. By Wednesday, the first wave of arrests began. CPD Captain Daniel Kellerman, obstruction of justice, conspiracy. City Zoning Director Francine Phelps, bribery, racketeering. Judge Malcolm Vane, public corruption, wire fraud. And then Vernon Wesley, racketeering, real estate fraud, money laundering. The footage looped all day on the news. Wesley being led out of his office in cuffs, his tie askew, sunglasses off, his carefully maintained smirk, nowhere to be found. Maria watched from a cafe on Clark Street. The patrons all had their eyes on the TV. No one cheered, they just watched, absorbing, processing. At the same time, Elias stood quietly behind the bench in his empty courtroom. The overhead light buzzed, a single file lay open before him, a petition from the new Civilian Oversight Board for the court's cooperation. He signed it, with his full name, then placed the pen down. Later that night, Maria and Elias met again. Same booth, same old diner, but now the world outside was different. She slid him a folded news clipping, Chicago's shadow system exposed. He didn't read it, just nodded. She said, "The Oversight Board is official. Civilian review of policing zones and redevelopment plans. No more sealed sessions, no more mystery grants." "And Finch?" Elias asked. Her smile faded, still missing. A beat passed, then she added, "But we've got enough, even without him." He sipped his tea. The jazz playing on the radio looped faintly, something off an old Monk record. "I'm not sure I believe in clean endings," he said finally. Maria looked at him. This wasn't clean, it was honest. He nodded once, then stood. "Come on," he said. "There's somewhere I want to go." They drove to South 61st Street, the block where Elias had been pulled over. It was quiet now, calm, no cruisers, no watchers, just street lights and porch chairs. He stepped out and looked around, as if seeing it for the first time without fear. Then, slowly, he walked to the patch of sidewalk that had once held spray paint. You chose the wrong side. It had been scrubbed clean. Now someone had etched something else in chalk above it. You stood, so we could. He stared at it for a long moment. Maria stood a few steps behind, saying nothing. Then a voice called out, "Judge Grayson?" They turned. A middle-aged man in a USPS jacket stood on the curb. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said. "I live 2 blocks over. Been here my whole life. You didn't have to do what you did." Elias met his eyes, voice soft. "I did." The classroom was quiet but alive. Rows of worn desks, colorful posters, and the low hum of a TV wheeled in from the AV room. 3rd grade, Southside Elementary, Tuesday morning. The teacher, Ms. Tompkins, stood at the front, arms folded, watching the news footage play in muted tones. The children sat cross-legged on the rug, fidgeting, giggling, half listening. All except for one, Jasmine Riley, 8 years old. She sat still, chin in hand, notebook in her lap. On screen, the segment played. Judge Elias Grayson testified before Congress last week, exposing a systemic redevelopment scheme in Chicago that is now facing federal investigation. B-roll footage rolled. Elias stepping out of the hearing room, protesters holding signs. A slow shot of him walking the south side sidewalk, head high, alone, but seen Jasmine tilted her head slightly. Her eyes were fixed. She didn't hear the snickering from 2 boys in the back, didn't flinch when the bell rang early. She just kept watching. When the segment ended, Ms. Tompkins clicked the remote off. She turned to the class. "Anyone know who that was?" A few half-hearted shrugs. A mutter of some judge, but Jasmine raised her hand. "Judge Grayson," she said quietly. "He was the one who got stopped." "That's right," Ms. Tompkins replied. "And what did he do?" Jasmine's voice didn't rise, but it didn't waver either. He told the truth, even when they told him not to. Ms. Tompkins smiled. The class moved on, to spelling words and math worksheets. But Jasmine didn't move right away. She pulled her notebook closer and began to draw. A small figure standing tall in front of a big building, a badge in one hand, a pen in the other. Behind him people, kids, parents, streets, a whole city. And across the top of the page, in careful block letters, she wrote, "When I grow up, I want to be like Judge Grayson,